it wasn't losing my memory, but I'd basically have periods where people had asked me to do something, and normally I'd go, yeah, I'd remember it, but I'd have to start writing things down. So this whole idea of short-term memory loss, it affected me, to the point where I remember one time I decided, this is just not for me. And I actually sat down with my doctor and said, you know what? I said, I'd rather be dead than, and again, it's a terrible thing to say, than to be the zombie that I'm turning into.
Kevin, how did you find carnivore?
Well, it was quite interesting. I guess for quite a number of years, I'd sort of been battling with weight. Particularly, I used to be quite active. Different types of sport in Australia. Playing cricket, football, all those sort of different things. And like even as a teenager and going through it, always had to be mindful of my weight. I just have to sniff something and it'd end up on my stomach. Um, and through that time too, even through post university and working and stuff, you would sort of be always mindful of the weight. I'd blown out to at one stage into like 160 kilograms, and then sort of managed to get that a little bit under control. But I still sort of around about 152 kilograms in. And things weren't looking particularly great, and a lot of frustrations. I'd had some success occasionally. I'd go on, those eating programs where you could just go online and order food to arrive at the door and stuff like that. And yeah, that did sort of work, but it was like it was not a normal way of eating. You'd sort of still always feel a bit hungry, and it'd work. But as soon as you went off it, you basically just didn't have a natural way. You just didn't. You always felt like you were restricting. And as my wife and family would know, when I'm like that, I'm just extra grumpy. So, I needed to find a more sustainable way of doing it. And then in recent times, I effectively sort of, decided, I went and saw a weight doctor, and initially put me on some medication. I think I lasted about 4 days on that, just headaches, and just felt terrible, and it wasn't necessarily working. I said, yeah, it was only 4 days, didn't give much of a go, but I've never been a big fan of medication. And so, I was talking to the particular doctor who's been fantastic, and I still see him, and he sort of doesn't really fully know what I'm doing. I sort of suspects it, but, we sort of agree to just sort of catch up with each other and monitor our health and all that sort of stuff as well. And effectively sort of said to me one time, says, if you're hungry in the evening, just have some protein. And I went, okay, that's interesting. And then a fellow at work, worked with quite closely, Paul, he sort of said to me about the things, this carnivore diet that he actually uses from time to time to maintain his weight and different things. And so gave me a couple of names, the good old Ken Berry type scenarios, and I looked at some of those videos and started doing my own research. And I to be honest, got a little bit obsessed by it. And essentially, I sort of started on this carnivore diet, and I started pretty, like one day eating the garbage I was eating. I said, "What garbage?" I was trying to eat pastas at night and have balanced food and stuff like that, and like. Again, it was just like, you'd get a little bit of weight loss, but you'd, go out on a weekend and, you'd have a barbecue one time or something, and you may have, an extra roll and stuff, and all the hard work you'd done for previous months seemed to disappear, and you'd be back up to the weight again, etc. And essentially, I went straight onto the carnivore. Now, there are some of those things around the balancing of the body and some of the beautiful things that happen in the toilet, Dave. But that took about 3 weeks, to be honest. And after 3 weeks, things started to settle. And I actually started to actually feel better in a lot of different ways. And there is a side story that's behind this, which I'll go on as well. But essentially, a couple of different things. One, certainly the toilet effects were not awesome. And that took 3 weeks or so, really. I was on heavy gout medication, so I was having gout outbreaks pretty bad. I was having really bad indigestion. And leading up and over that summer, I was actually really having so sort of appalling indigestion. I had to go to the doctors and a whole range of things. So there was this sort of area like that. And then I was going on to carnivore, and it actually started alleviating that within about 2 months. of this process, I had effectively, the gout had started to minimize. My medication I was initially on was dropped a bit during that phases. The indigestion over a couple of periods of time started to disappear as well. And also the weight loss started to happen quite steady. And they sort of talked around, like aching joints and all that sort of stuff as well. And you sort of think, I'm going to live with that because, again, playing contact sports, I've played rugby, football, and those sort of different things. I've had some ankle operations and knee operations. And, I'd get up in the morning and I'd limp around for the first half hour until I warmed up. The left knee would be sore, the right ankle a little bit, and I'd hobble around. And even within a month of it, I got out of bed one time and went to have the shower and stuff like that. And it took me a little bit of time to realize the fact that some of that aching and that sort of stiffness was actually significantly disappearing. And even while I was still quite heavy, my wedding ring, even that was becoming looser as well. And so we sort of talk about inflammation and all sorts of other things. During this journey, I've done a lot. I mean, education-wise and stuff, I've got an honours degree in chemistry and I've done biochem. So during this whole journey, I would even immerse myself in getting back into that world, reading medical journals, understanding the chemistry of the body, and also learning from a lot of fantastic people online as well. And again, when you talk to your own doctor about the YouTube and online videos, they sort of all start, cringing and, oh no, here's another one and that sort of stuff. But when you have, cardiologists and doctors and health professionals with your own channels who are qualified people and talking about sort of different things, they're not crazy loons. They're people that are really committed to people's health, which has been a fantastic part of the carnivore community, Dave, which has been great. But this is the sort of side thing that was happening during this period of time when, it was over actually a summer period, probably around about November, December. I started getting, this sort of indigestion and all those sort of different things. And, the doctor was a bit concerned. But during that first few months of the carnivore, a lot of those things all disappeared. In fact, I was walking further. I was doing 10K walks, all sorts of different things. And I was getting better all the time. But what actually happened, Dave, is that eventually the doctor, I was feeling quite good. And he goes, oh, look, I know you don't have this anymore. So, did a whole lot of different tests and stuff. And he said, you're getting a bit older. Your father had a heart attack, different things. So I went and got a test and found out and got a coronary heart scan and all sorts of things, and actually found I did actually have some major issues with blockages through the lifestyle that I'd had for years. And at that stage when I was quite crippled, I did actually have one major block, and that was completely blocked. And the body was interesting in the fact it actually grew 2 new arteries and replumbed itself, which I think was quite interesting. But the more concerning one too was the fact that the widowmaker artery, one of the ones, the top one, it was seriously blocked in that particular case. But the interesting through that, it actually during this process, obviously when I was struggling with that, is that during those few months before I actually went and saw the cardiologist, things had actually got significantly better. So I don't know what was happening to the blockage and that sort of stuff, but as I said before, during that process and those times, I'd actually got to the point by the time I was at the cardiologist and we'd had the scan, he goes, oh, I got some serious problems. I'm going, okay, I go on 10K walks now. I just, the weekend before actually, because I actually did have to go in for a surgery. The weekend before that, I was running around kicking the football with my son. Before actually going in and that sort of stuff. And I was actually feeling quite good. And I turned up to the hospital and I was, admitted into ICU and the process and that sort of stuff. And the hospital I went to at the time was doing a lot of rebuilding and stuff. So, I turn up there and all the nurses are, treating me like, I was going to die, which I felt far from that. And to the point too, where they had some issues with the trolley. So I ended up walking to the theatre to have the investigation to find out what it was. And then when I got there, I was that heavy that I thought, look, guys, still think me just jump up on the operating table. So I actually jumped up onto the operating table, and they did. And what actually ended up happening is I ended up having a stent put in that artery that was almost completely blocked. So the question I sort of really had myself is, why did I sort of suddenly start feeling a lot better, the symptoms disappearing and that sort of stuff during those few months of carnivore? And again, I would need to thank the medical profession too, because at the end of the day, because the way I'd eaten, I'd got myself in that situation. And the cardiologist that did the work was very skilled, did what he needed to do. I ended up having a stent put into that particular area. And again, I sort of, you sort of think back how you let yourself happen and you try to do all these different things. And look, levels of frustration, Dave. And sort of that happened. And, straight away from that sort of particular point, it was like the cardiologist straight onto statins, all that sort of stuff, which I hadn't really understood at that time about all those sort of different things, understood that. And I remember even coming into ICU and basically saying, Kev, you've got to start it. You've got to eat plants now. You've got to stop, eating meat because he didn't know I was carnivore or anything like that. And the thing about it, because I had felt so great, and I'm sitting there after an operation, and again, I think, in the coming weeks, having that stent in obviously did open it up. And, I was feeling even, able to do more things even better. But the thing is that because carnivore was making these remarkable results to my weight loss right up until that area and was feeling so good, is that I did not want to leave the carnivore experience of what it was doing for me. So essentially what was happening is I went into hospital, and I knew that the term carnivore was not going to be a very popular one, particularly when you're sitting in ICU. So I sort of said, I'm on a keto diet and those sort of different things. And so one of the nurses, there were two nurses in there, a head nurse and a younger nurse as well. And I was sort of saying, I've sort of keto type area, and said, how does that go? I said, it's been working absolutely fantastic. At that stage, I dropped 15, 18 kilos from that particular area. And I said, I was feeling great. And essentially the nurse started asking more questions about it, but the senior nurse basically told her she didn't use the word shut up, but basically shut her completely down and said, this sort of eating and that sort of stuff's no good for anyone. And so even when I was asked for keto, like type friendly foods, I'd get a bit of meat on a pile of mashed potatoes and all these other things, honeyed carrots. But what was happening, I'd already worded my wife up saying, look, I'm going to go to hospital. And, the doctor, if he ever sees this, will get, properly angry at me. But she would bring secret meat in for me to the hospital, and I wouldn't be eating the hospital food, but I'd be eating my carnivore food while I'm sitting in ICU. Quite interesting through those areas. And, obviously, there was a whole story around statins and stuff. And like got put on this level of statins, and my goodness, a month in that, I had to tell the doctor I'm not doing it anymore. I said, I'd rather be dead than be on these things. The muscle aches and pains down my leg. And I know why they ask you to have a statin at night is because the aches and pains that you get, they're hoping you can sleep it off. But I'd wake up at 2:00 in the morning, felt terrible. The other thing around the job that I work in, I've got to manage a lot of people. I've always got to be switched on. And I was really having issues. I was becoming, it wasn't losing my memory, but I'd basically have periods where people had asked me to do something. And normally I'd go, yep, I'd remember it, but I'd have to start writing things down. So this whole idea of short-term memory loss, it affected me to the point where I remember one time I decided, this is just not for me. And I actually sat down with my doctor and said, you know what? I said, I'd rather be dead than, and again, it's a terrible thing to say, than to be the zombie that I'm turning into. And again, I don't know whether people get that, but I'd be at home doing a barbecue and I'd walk inside and I'd go, what did I come inside again? I just have these little pages, and particularly in work when I'm asked to manage and do things and I've got a lot of priorities all the time, I was finding I just had to keep writing things down. There was also issues with us getting tired, which I hadn't had for a long time. I was also just having issues with the weight loss. It sort of started changing. Perhaps I was plateauing or all that sort of business as well. But I'd made the decision, first of all, to reduce the amount of statin to eventually actually go off the statin. And I know if there's doctors sitting there saying, Kev, you've already got a heart condition, you've got a stent in there, you're going to basically get clotting, you're going to have a heart attack. Well, it's interesting. I'm sort of science background. I'm willing to experiment on myself and my life. But, it's a bit over the top that. But essentially, I'm very keen to see, I'm coming up to, almost 12 months between, probably 8 months of actually the carnivore journey, to actually get another scan at some stage to see what actually my body is actually done under this diet. And I have been pretty strict. It's not like I've actually gone and said, I've had periods where I've had cheat meals and that sort of stuff, etc. I mean, I haven't even had a sweet biscuit in the 9 months that I've done it. I've been very strict around all of this. And so I'm actually keen to see what the effects are on my body around this, Dave, and to see whether there have been improvements or, in fact, I've got more inclusions. I'm going to have more artery, all that sort of stuff. And at the moment, I've actually now lost, 44 kilos, nearly 100 pounds in 9 months. And I've done that with minimal exercise. Yes, I walk in the mornings. I enjoy that sort of stuff, but I'm not sort of haven't been going crazy. But I guess in the last 22 weeks of this journey, I've had a mate that's been, saying for years, Kev said, come to the gym with me and all that sort of stuff. And so 22 weeks ago, I sort of started on the gym work because I felt I was having more energy. I was just feeling, the weight loss had come off. I just felt more inspired because the eating and the processes were, one, yes, I was seeing results. I was feeling better, a whole range of different things. And then going to the gym, I was pretty ashamed. I was only like, some of the pressings of, doing a bench press. I was doing, struggling doing 75, 80 pound, and I'd become blah, blah, blah. And over that period of time, I've actually doubled a lot of the weights that I can actually push. So I'm doing, like 165, looking to go to 180 on a bench press now. The actual bicep curl machine and everything like that, I can actually max that out, that device and stuff. And I said, I haven't been strong like that since I was in my 20s. In fact, the weight I'm now getting to, I'm getting back to the weight I was, 25 years ago. And I'm eating healthy. I'm eating so I'm comfortable. I don't very, very, very often, very rarely ever have cravings. I look forward to my meals at night. And I just feel quite content with myself. Where the weight loss is going to stop, I don't know, because I'm still continuing to lose weight. Some people have said to me occasionally, said, Kev, what are you doing and that sort of stuff. And, I know some of them would be a bit concerned if I said I was carnivore because, there is a lot of programming in society around, the way we're meant to eat, etc. And I jokingly told them, said, oh, look, I just stopped taking worm tablets. It's the way to go. And look, and there has been some other closer family to me, and particularly my wife. And this was quite interesting, Dave, my beautiful wife, Stephanie. When I first started this, she said to me, Kevin, you are an idiot. She said, you are going to make yourself sick. And 1 month later, she actually joined me into the carnivore diet. And so she's been eating that way as well. She's probably not as strict as myself, but she's lost 17 kilos. It looks fantastic. And she's actually at her age of, 50, she's now back playing netball on weekends and training. It's just phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's been an interesting journey. This is 9 months of it, and it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah. So just timeline-wise, how long ago was the operation?
It would have been May, probably about May or so last year. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And again, and leading up to that, as I said before, I mean, I'd got to a point where by the time I was ready to book in to do the operation, I actually felt really quite good, of rocking up, and to have heart surgery. And like I said before, I'd running around kicking footy and doing, 10K walks and that sort of stuff. But, up until the previous test, I'd actually had quite a severe blockage. And again, I don't know what would have been the result. And again, it may have blocked up, who knows with what happened, but it would have been interesting to monitor to see if I'd had another scan before that to see whether there had actually been a change in the blockage or not.
Leading up to that blockage, I mean, what other things do you think probably contributed to that blockage?
It just would have been like I work in a very, for many years, quite a stressful job. So I honestly believe stress is another thing too, Dave. I think, not enough sleep. So during this sort of health phases, I tried to work on management ways of working with the team, spreading bit loads instead of taking on all myself all the time, getting enough sleep. Definitely, bad diet, not enough sleep, not enough time to sort of have a decent work-life balance. They're important too. Eating is important, I think, and we talk about this expression about eating whole natural foods and stuff, and I think that's true as well. And I think the other thing I've seen with other people eating and some of the other communities and stuff, I think some people are carnivores, some people can accept other more different types of food. And I think in the end of the day, I think eating the whole foods, and depending on how far you want to go to the carnivore and how many low carb veggies you want to have, comes down to the individual and what works for them. So I think that's the great thing about it. It's not about, putting on some sort of clergy robe and becoming a monk of carnivore. It's basically saying you do what you think works for you and you change it up and you mix it around. But just, as a lot of the experts in the area, if you have a packet of food and it's got a list of that ingredients that long with chemical names, probably a good idea not to eat it. And I actually listened to a video from, was it Paul, the cardiac surgeon? I can't remember his name. He's big on this, but he said something the other day when I was listening to him. And he said, we're the only sort of animal on the planet that was stupid enough to make our own food and eat it. So, where there's more chemicals in society now in our system and our ecosystems because we've created them than there ever was before 150 years ago or so. And, we're still looking at the effects of how that affects our own health. And, this obsession with the fact is, you can eat garbage if you want, but we've got a pill to save you for it and that sort of stuff. It's been a bit of an awakening journey the last 9-10 months for me, Dave.
And so on the medication front, so you've completely got rid of the statin that you're on?
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. I'm just not having it anymore. And in terms of gout medication, I was on 600 milligrams, been going down. I'm actually now on 100 milligrams, and I'm actually having no symptoms whatsoever of gout. And the doctor I work with in Ballarat, he's fantastic. He's basically at the point where we go, okay, we might actually have a look at going off it completely now. So I may be completely off gout medication since for 9 months of eating this way. And it's interesting, if you read about gout, what are the two things that you shouldn't be eating? Red meat and seafood. And what all I eat is red meat and a bit of seafood. Yeah.
It's amazing. Gout is probably a result of things like fructose consumption and things like that, right? Like just sugars and stuff.
Yeah, correct. Sugars. And the thing around the biology of the human body and how it does, it's very, 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 very complex. I'm not an expert in it, but the pathways and the way you eat, and I guess the amount of how fat you are, or all sorts of different things as well. It's just good not to be on medication, particularly, gout can affect, I think, your liver and kidneys and the medication and stuff. So it's good to be able to sort of not have to have those sort of things. And I'm really looking forward to having a period of time and see how I go, where I'll be completely off that medication, which would be great. The other thing that's happened too, in terms of, the carnivore diet, is that in the early days, Dave, I didn't salt my food enough, and I used to have these awesome cramps, which I sort of got online, read about, electrolytes and that sort of stuff. So, I don't go out and buy certain replacements. And I know there's people sort of talk about Element, and there's a few of the YouTubers get sponsored for it and stuff and helps them out. But I just use good old pink salt. Don't use the Redmond's one, couldn't find it. So I just went into the local Aldi and found a pink salt there and used that. And that did significantly help. So I do salt my food. And it's interesting. I eat red meat, a little bit of seafood. I salt my food. And my blood pressure now, which was, I was also on a point of now being looked at of having blood pressure medication. My resting medication, blood pressure now, I can sit down and do it, and I'll be about, 122/78. Systolic, diastolic, and it was sitting at around 150, the highest one, and that sort of stuff. And again, some of that would have been, attributed to some of the blockages and all that sort of stuff as well. But even the last, 9 months of eating like this way, my blood pressure just continues to balance and even out quite nicely. So, it's a bit of a mystery around all this, the way we're meant to eat. And again, I sort of, people talk to me about it and they probably tell me to shut up about it, but like it's transformed me so much that I just love talking about it. And people probably go, don't talk to Kevin about carnivore, please don't. You won't shut him up. And again, I wish I knew about this 20 years ago, Dave. I really do, or 30 years ago around this way of eating. And, it's been such a fantastic, the people like yourself and other YouTubers that have got out there and talk around it, sort of, trying to change the narrative of where we currently are with the way we eat. And again, did you see that? I saw someone sent me a clip to around the carnivore, around that South Park episode where the food pyramid, and yeah, that is a classic one. It's the thing about South Park for all their rights and wrongs and the sort of different things is that sometimes that they, when they bring certain things up, there's often more truth in it. And while we laugh at it, we sort of cringe as well, knowing that, there's probably not too far from the truth about some of the things that they state in there.
I like the truth by comedy is I think is a good thing, because it's a lot easier to teach people things when you're making them laugh, like South Park does to us, because you're so focused on enjoying the moment, you're not really thinking about, people are not really thinking about what they're learning at the same time, so it's a great way to get the message across.
Yeah, look, there have been some other negatives though, Dave, and I probably, I shouldn't be talking about all the positives and that sort of stuff. I mean, the negatives are the fact that I throw 5 garbage bags of clothes I'll give away to the op shop or the opportunity shop. That's a financial burden when you have to go buy all new work clothes and stuff like that. And, to be able to walk into a normal shop and buy clothes of normal sizes without going to the big man store and all that sort of stuff is quite it's quite satisfying too. Be able to fit into things again. But yeah, there's still some of my favourite jackets that I've kept along. My wife wants to throw out because they do look too big on me and stuff. But there's some things I like to keep.
Wow. So I think for me that was one of the that was one of the highlights for me. Definitely was kind of realizing, okay, well, I can go and buy clothes and feel more comfortable wearing some new clothes, or those jeans that I haven't worn for 5 years are actually going to fit me now,
Yeah. Look, I even so I tried on some of my old rugby jumpers, and I go, geez, I can't believe it, because it's interesting. During this process, I'd sort of look in the mirror, and I sort of didn't really ever want to look in the mirror. I mean, I just avoided them and that sort of stuff. And there were phases where I'd say, I seem lighter, but I don't look any different. But people tell me I look different, but there is a turning point where you sort of suddenly go, you know what, there is significance. If when I go down the farm and things like that, probably get bad marked on this one. I do rabbit destruction, game shooting and that sort of stuff. And I hadn't been down there for quite some time, and I put on my old gun belt, and I was on the last lot of my gun belt barely fitting me, and I went there and had to zip it right up, and the belt was itself, this long, tail of leather that, and I had to go get a leather punch to fit all this sort of stuff in. And when you have those little things, you go, you know what, there has been a significant transformation. And, it just makes you feel better across all of it. I mean, weight loss and feeling better and health and the mental side of it. There's a lot of factors that contribute to then your ongoing health, both physically and mentally. Yeah. But
Yeah.
your journey too, Dave, it's interesting. You're a bit like me in the fact that I saw a video recently yours where basically you did have some arterial plaque in inside and stuff, and you're looking to see what's happened over a period of time. You're going to get some scans. I'm similar in the fact that I'll be keen at some stage, even 12 months later, to get another scan to see exactly what's happened from eating like this, and whether I'm about to drop dead again, or whether I'm actually holding steady. There are cases where people have reversed some of the plaque, but I'm not I'm not crazy saying I'm suddenly going to be clean again. But I'm very keen to see what actually happens to the ongoing calcium score that I get. And again, I'll be very keen to see yours as well when you get yours done, Dave.
Yeah, I'm super. It's a weird thing to say, but I'm super excited about it. You know how when you were a kid, it was like, well, I can't wait for Christmas Day to get here. And it's almost like, I've got to wait a whole year and I can't wait for this date to come because I just want to know what the result is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over summer, we had a bit of a Christmas break, and like my son, who's he's sort of getting to 13, 14 years of age, and he's playing cricket and that sort of stuff. And we went down to the cricket nets with a few of my nephews and a few of my brothers and that sort of stuff as well. It was quite a warm day and stuff, and the fitness wise and that as well. I mean, I bowled, and I used to bowl reasonably fast when I was younger, not express, but good steady medium pace. But I was able to actually bowl in the cricket nets for about 2 hours, pretty steady. And one of my cousins and that accused me of, how can I be so fit? And that's been a long time since I've been accused of being fit. But yeah, I basically, just the endurance and everything. I said before, my 40s were pretty bad, and I'm feeling like that I'm pushed back to what I could do in my 30s. And again, I've got to be mindful because I am 50 odd. So I've got to be mindful of the fact that, your joints and your body and stuff, you've got to be not hurting yourself or injure yourself to the point where you can't exercise anymore. But just kicking the footy beat around and bowling and that sort of stuff, I just feel so energized. It's phenomenal. And I can't explain how it makes me feel. I've got to be, even last week, I've been going for my walks, and I actually did 2 5K runs. And I've got to be careful because I've got to realize that I don't want to wear myself out, etc. But I did 2 5K runs last week,
Wow.
and I thought, well, that's fine, but let's just break it up a little bit. Let's just keep with the walking, just do that every now and again.
So I mean, I think there's a few key things there that are really worth emphasizing. One of them is you said endurance, and I think that's something I've noticed as well. Is like I was never someone that could do any level of endurance. There was just no enduring in any
Yep.
physical exertion. And yeah, now I can just go and go and go and go and go.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the other thing is like it's such a good feeling when everything like your joints and your flexibility and everything just starts to work again, and it's all kind of working together like it's meant to. That's the great feeling, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just amazing. I sort of got to a point where everything I was putting down is, I'm just getting older, and you can through this way of eating, transform the way you feel, the way you look, and just the way you act. I said before, I just kicked myself that I never knew around this way of eating. I mean, even work has sort of embraced it a bit now. I sort of, they sort of go, oh, in the early days, Kev, you're a bit of a nut. But now even at work functions and stuff, people, you're vegetarian, you're vegan, you're gluten-free. I'm carnivore, and I work functions, I get carnivore based meats, and it's good that the work people around me have seen the change in me and go, you know what, Kevin's not completely that crazy. There is something to what's happened and how it's transformed him.
That's nice. There's just two things that I wanted before we move on. There's two things about the conditions that you've talked about that I wanted to touch on. The
Mm.
first one is regarding regarding the arterial blockages. Um, did you have any kind of angina symptoms or anything that indicated there was a problem?
I was just having really, and this is the thing, if people have these symptoms, they do need to go to the doctor. If you're eating the traditional way that a lot of us have eaten and you are going to have a heart attack, you do need to make sure that if you do have, particularly a lot of people, as I've found, this reflux. So it feels like reflux. I mean, I wasn't having chest pain. I was just getting this feeling of like real heartburn. And again, that made people might say, well, that's angina, etc. But to me, the only thing I could relate to is, like just acid reflux. And if you are having those things, I mean, you need to go to your doctor and get things checked out and that sort of stuff. And then, there's the whole other aspect of how you actually change that and address it and that sort of stuff as well. Whether you want to stick to medications or whether you want to do something around the way you change your lifestyle. And I think that's the decision. I think doctors, Dave, to be honest, are in a bit of a hard position because if I talk about statins, okay, statins lower your medication. If you want to eat crap and you want to, try and, not have a heart attack, yeah, have some chemicals that try and, affect or try and cut off the bad way that you're living. Yeah, reduce your cholesterol, effectively reduce the cholesterol in your brain and start having all the other issues and that sort of stuff. But if you want to eat like that, then by all means, get on a statin, live with the statin, do what you need to do, or you can make a decision to completely change the way you eat. And that's what I've done. And now I could have said, "Oh, look, I'm going to continue to eat apple pies and chocolates and ice cream and that sort of stuff," or I can actually take some incentive and say, "You know what? I've found a way that actually makes me feel better." Evidence-wise, I'm still got to find out how the insides of my body are in terms of the way things are going. The fact I'm getting off, I feel metabolically better. I'm getting off gout medication. Endurance-wise and that sort of stuff, I can't see an indication of the fact that I'm building up or getting, arterial plaque in terms of blockages, etc. That's yet to be seen because I don't have the evidence for it. Yeah, that sort of thing. And doctors, they could have someone says, well, I may have a heart attack. You could have given me a statin, but you decided not to give me a statin. They're in a rock and a hard place, Dave. They could say, well, you got to eat better, you got to do this and got to do that sort of stuff. And most patients will go out the door, yeah, I'll try, and they'll go back to the doctor. So I've been eating better, for 3 days out of the 7. So they are in a hard place. But again, I just, from my experience, I'm just not interested in those statin things, the way they made me feel. And again, I'm sort of on this journey of removing myself from medication if I can. And again, I'm hopeful the next time I meet my doctor, he's a great man in Ballarat, that we can actually get off gout and see how I go, the gout medication, see how I go from that point.
And the other thing was regarding the gout. When was the last gout attack?
Oh, I can't remember.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, look, in the early days, I mean, I was probably suffering some gout when I first started carnivore and stuff, but I haven't had an outbreaking gout for this journey.
Wow.
And I've been dropping medication down to very low levels now.
So, I mean, this would be heartening to a lot of people watching that are suffering from things like gout and maybe worried about their overall health. So, for you, what is a day of eating like for you?
I sort of, during the research around that time, I'm pretty much eat once a day. Okay, so I have an evening meal, and I know basically that regime of sort of intermittent fasting, I think, has worked really well for me. For my wife, she has breakfast. She has some bacon eggs for breakfast, won't eat throughout the day, and then has an evening meal. And she has had the results as well. She can't get through the day without breakfast. I'm quite happy to go through, drink plenty of water throughout the day. It's up there at the moment. I've got a storage of sparkling mineral water. It's my vice. It feels like I cheat a little bit. It's only water, but it's got a few bubbles in it. So it's sort of, it's a bit, occasionally you just don't feel like water. You can have a bit of that. Occasionally put a little bit of apple vinegar cider, the old wives' tale about how it helps with things, but occasionally it's got a little bit of a tang to it. So I'll mix it up that way a little bit. I still, like, if I go out to the pitches and that sort of stuff, I might treat myself to, like a Pepsi Max or a Coke Zero. Now, I know they're bad for you, but it's the little treat I have sometimes in those particular cases. So, I don't have chocolate bars or anything like that. That's the sort of little treat that I have. If I go out for tea, which is always an interesting story when you're talking to restaurants about how you want your meat. And I had an argument actually in WA. I was over there for a conference, and I ordered it and said, look, I just want the meat. If it's possible, I'd just like it cooked in butter, no seed oils or anything like that as well. And anyway, the manager came up to me and said, oh, look, sir, I understand that you just want meat and stuff like that, but we can make you a very nice salad. We can do a custom salad for you. I said, no. I said, I don't want the salad. I just want the meat. And if possible, please, I could have some eggs with it and cooked in butter. Anyway, the meal comes out and they brought salad on it and all that sort of stuff as well. And I've gone, did you not hear me? I said, I do not want the salad and that sort of stuff. And they were just trying to press me to have a salad with my meal. So, it was quite interesting. And look, the people, again, I had work people around me and they're just laughing at me. And I laugh too. Just, what can you do? I'm not going to get grumpy with them. I said, look, look, can you just give me another plate? I said, why? So I can take all the salad off it and put it so you can take it back. And then, look, it is interesting when you travel around for conferences, Dave, and stuff. The little tricks you do to sort of say carnivore. I mean, there's dirty carnivore. I mean, if I'm out and about and I'm in an airport and I'm going to miss a meal and stuff like that, I'll go and order 4 meat patties from Hungry Jack's or McDonald's, and they're probably full of all the wrong oils and stuff, but you get through it that sort of way. You go to a food court and you can find carveries, and people are quite happy to carve up just some straight meat for you and throw an egg on top of it. There are ways to be able to do it. There are times where basically the intermittent fasting may go longer than what you want it to, but you stick to it. And again, once you see the benefits and the way you feel, it inspires you. It sort of keeps you going in that particular area. Am I going to be a carnivore for life? I don't know. I think I would like to, because if I continue to feel the way I do, I don't feel like I want to go back to eating that, tastes, apple pies and sort of stuff that tastes great but make me feel terrible. That's the choice in life that you have. And for me, just the genetics of myself. I think, as I mentioned before, if I have a bit of bread or something sweet, it just goes straight on. And just the way I am.
Yeah. I always find it interesting when you talk to carnivores where, they've got the option of going back and they know that stuff will taste good, the apple pies and the chocolates or whatever, it'll taste good, but they're still like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that because I know how I'm going to feel.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's correct. So again, it's an interesting journey, and I still think that I'll still continue to eat this way. I don't know when my weight is going to balance that, though. I still haven't got to that part of the journey. I'm still losing weight, and so that's the interesting question I have for myself. When am I going to equalize? And when I equalize, what is that point? And it's quite fascinating about the biology of the human body about eating this way. It seems to wants to return to a point in your body or that feels the way you should be. And I don't understand that fully. Again, I'm not an expert in any of these things. I'm a novice in all this sort of stuff. But I know what makes me feel good and what makes me feel happy with myself in every aspect. So my wife's now getting concerned, though, Dave. She's actually saying, so Kev, you sort of, like you had these goals, and that was 3 goals again, and now I keep setting new lower goals for my weight and stuff. She goes, when are you going to stop?
So how much do you feel you have to lose still? So you lost 44 kilos. How much more would you like to lose?
I don't know. Some probably, well, if you asked me 4 months ago, it would have been a different answer to today. But I think that probably another, I don't know, somewhere around 7 or 8 kilos, I think. Yeah. But see, during this time too, and this is the thing about it, is that through the gym work, I've actually lost weight, but I've also put on muscle bulk. So this 44 kilos is that, yes, that's an overall weight loss, but I've lost fat, but I've put on muscle bulk. And that's the other thing around it. Just putting on muscle bulk and tone through this way of eating has actually been, like, for instance, I talked about my mate before, who's actually name's Kev as well. Hey, Kev. And with Kev, he actually said to me, he said, Kev, if I didn't know any different, I said, because he's trained people in the gym before, etc. He goes, if I didn't know you, he said, I would have thought you were on steroids because of the rapid growth and increase in strength and all sorts of things. And I'm not. But even talking to my sort of weight loss doctor, who I sort of go up and we sort of talk about things, and he monitors stuff with me, and he suspects perhaps, I may be a bit more protein based than what he thinks. But he also said that as you get fitter and as you lose weight and that sort of stuff, the body can also start producing proper levels of testosterone and that sort of stuff as well. So all the interplays between all of this. So, not eating meat's not a steroid, I don't think, but getting your body metabolically fit and having all of the biological mechanisms that happen in the body and bringing balance to that to do what it needs to do, that's where it's all started to happen again. And so, yeah, I continue to go on. You can see why people don't talk to me about this, Dave, because I don't shut up about it.
So someone's watching, they want to get started. How would you recommend they get started with this? They're at the wit's end about weight loss and other health issues that they're having. They just need a solution. How to get started?
Yeah, there's two things. I know that there are some people that go on about grain-fed, grain-finished meat and that sort of stuff. Just eat the meat you can afford. I actually find that I've had to increase the amount of fatty meat I have, just for energy levels and that satiety effect I've got. So, and that works out nicely because I buy chuck steak, and a lot of people look at chuck steak to chuck in stews and stuff, but I actually quite like that in that area. So you would eat the meat that you can afford. It's better to eat the meat you can afford than to eat the garbage that's out there. There's no doubt about that. I would rather do that, but I jumped into it, pretty much off the board. And again, the toilet stuff, you get past that. And I just felt jumping into that the first 2-3 weeks, this thing around carb addiction is true. You walk into a service station after filling up the car and you're used to just grabbing a Mars bar or some sort of other chocky or something. And those first few weeks, the body really wants to go, you want carbs, Kev. You want carbs. Eat those carbs. And you can almost taste it boiling up in the back of your gums and blah, blah, blah. And it is a real thing. But you do get over it and you stick to it. And again, would I have jumped in the same way I did last time? Yeah, for sure. I just think just pull the Band-Aid off and get into it. And just have mechanisms. I mean, I've had a mate that's done it too, and it's good having a network of people that you can talk to, discuss about things, the little things that happen, embarrassing stuff that you may want to not talk about to the average person, and then going out and then using the YouTube community and getting out there and watching videos about stuff. Just be mindful of them. Look, there are some pretty, there may be some carnivore nutters out there and that sort of stuff, but their intentions are always good, but work, make sure, choose something that works for you. And if you are feeling unwell and stuff, again, do go to your doctor. Your doctors are good people. They may not necessarily know the goodness of carnivore and off the bat, but you do need to be mindful of your health. And if you were something like me and stuff like that, going ahead and saying, well, carnivore is going to fix me, I may have had a heart attack. I don't know where it got to. So you've got to work with your health professionals, and hopefully I'm sort of staying to have dialogue where we can talk together around the benefits of what's happened to me, as opposed to sort of they know all the answers, and they're very smart. They're all great people, but they've got to start having a look at the fact that what we've been doing for the last 70 years in eating has not been good. And again, the story I heard the other day around the fact that in the early 1900s, some doctors, went through their whole professional career without ever seeing a heart attack. And that was an interesting point. And it wasn't until, 1950s or so with the eating and that sort of stuff. And then the whole story around the fact that there was a relationship between eating fat and cholesterol that won out. And, and ever since, I think we're being in a spiral in terms of Western countries and the way we eat. It'd be great to be able to have a tablet and just eat crap, but the side effects and all that sort of stuff just aren't worth it. I've got kids in their teens and stuff, and I want to be around for them and involved with them and active and that sort of stuff. I think going down the medication path may have kept me lingering along and stuff, but not living the life I'm now living at the moment.
So, Kevin, do you have any social media if people want to reach out to you?
No, I try to hide.
No.
Look, if someone wants to have a talk to you about my journey, Dave, and stuff like that, you've got my details. If they reach out to you, we can probably connect. I'm not about sort of starting my own channel and the journey and that sort of stuff. If people want to talk to me about it, I can bore them to death as long as they want.
Nice. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
No, and I'll be keen to watch your story, particularly those next medical results and stuff, Dave. So keep well.